Hi, everybody. Wow, it's episode 7, which is crazy to me that we have recorded 6 episodes and a bunch of ads and have been on this journey for a little while now. I don't know, it's very bittersweet. Like, it's been such a cool process to be able to record and speak to my network in a different way than like just on LinkedIn or just at conferences or via email. I've loved it so much, and I just hope that we do this forever. So, petition to make workflows and espressos last until 2047. I don't even know how long that is. That's not forever. 2067. How much longer am I going to live? Anyways, last episode had to go out with a bang. So, we've done a lot this season. We've talked about technology. We've talked about the guest experience. We've talked about the essentials of starting a short term rental business or a business in general. We have talked about what else? Regulation, just really like the entire spectrum of the industry, which has been really cool to be able to dissect every individual topic. And so when I was prepping for episode 7, which disclosure was like all this morning, that makes it sound like I've been prepping for this for like months and months and months. I thought about it last night, and this morning I woke up and I texted Will, who is my network boss, obviously, and I was like, "Okay, I know that we're supposed to talk about this in episode 7, but I think I want to talk about this instead." And he said, "I love it." So we're doing it. So episode 7 is called Future Flavors: Emerging Trends and the Road Ahead. So I've heard a lot of incredible podcasts this really like the past couple of months. I'm recording this in the beginning of 2024 in February, and I've heard so many podcasts about predictions for 2024. And I've read articles on what we expect travel to look like this year. And so many people have incredible takes on what to expect in 2024. So I wanted to do something a little different. Overall, like what I'm picking up, there are two main like bullet points, I guess, that are mentioned in every single podcast that I listen to or in every article that I read about like predictions for 2024. So, the first trend is that, or prediction that we're seeing, is everything regarding like performance from a revenue occupancy standpoint is supposed to be very similar to that of 2023, which I think makes a lot of sense since we started to see travel normalize, particularly over the last 18 months. And what shape I think this is gonna take. So last year we saw ADRs were being held really high because we were used to 2020, 2021, early 2022, like the demand was just absolutely insane and it was far outweighing supply. So everybody was holding their ADRs higher and higher and higher and higher and hoping that there would be this like really big push in terms of demand and occupancy. Last year that didn't happen. So what happened is everybody held their average daily rate pretty high. And when we realized, like, oh no, we're not going to see the occupancy and the demand that we have been seeing over the last couple of years, slashed rates, ADR dropped significantly in a short amount of time, and occupancy still didn't catch up. So, what I expect to see this year, and what a lot of data experts are predicting, is that we are going to see ADR start to shift incrementally down versus very quickly big slashes to rates. And this is going to be great because it's going to assist occupancy over time. I'm doing a lot with my hands. Those of you who are listening can't see this, but I have fully drawn out a full graph with my hands. So watch on YouTube if you're interested in that. I think it's going to be very helpful in terms of occupancy. It will be able to stay in line, which ultimately I believe will lead to a slightly increased RevPAR year over year in the industry as a whole. And it just shows like we're getting smarter with our rate adjustments and we are understanding like, hey, if the demand isn't there, start to lower those rates incrementally. Don't rely on last minute slashes. It will work, but it won't work as well as it would have if you would have started lowering rates a while ago. And keep an eye on those booking windows, which we've talked about previously, and understand when you should expect to see your properties start booking. And if they are not booking and you are past your booking window or well within it, then you know it is time, it has been time to make those adjustments. So, The next thing, which I'm very excited to talk about because obviously I'm a major Taylor Swift fan. I mean, I guess that's not obvious, but if you've been listening for 7 episodes so far, then that you should just know, like, I am a powerful woman. She's a powerful woman. Obviously, I have not won 14 Grammys like she has, but you're not gonna find a badass woman that's not a Swiftie these days. Is that a hot take? I want to talk about this. So, European travel is expected to blow up this year, just like it did last year. I mentioned Taylor Swift because she's going to be touring in Europe all summer, and the Olympics are going to be happening in Paris. I think that's right. In Paris, the Paris Olympics. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so with the Olympics and with Taylor Swift, we can expect to see European travel continue to have this boom. And I personally believe that impacts luxury markets in the United States more than it does any type of economy drive to destination. People who are looking to spend $15,000 plus on a week stay and are likely flying to their destination, those are the types of travelers that are now going to be going to Europe versus travelers who are looking for shorter stays and they're driving to the market that they're visiting. Along that same vein, drive to travelers in particular are going to look for shorter and shorter and shorter stays. And we saw a lot of this last year. I believe that's going to continue. I think I could talk about predictions for the rest of the episode, right? Like we all have our predictions and we all, have ideas on what we think is going to happen in 2024. But I thought of something a little bit different this episode. And I have talked to you and given tips throughout the season on just like the specific topics that we're referencing, but I have not given tips on running a business in general and things that I suggest you start and stop in 2024. So, I've been seeing a lot of this on social media in general, right? Like influencers are putting out a list of like things to start and things to stop in 2024. And I thought that was so cool to like apply it to the podcast and the industry in general. And so I made my own little list, and it is not really specific to any department as much as it is to your business as a whole. And if I was, whether you're starting a business or whether you've had a company for a really long time, these are just my ideas and suggestions on things to implement in 2024 to start doing, and things that if you are doing, I suggest stopping, and I will tell you why. So let's get into it. I'm drinking tea again, by the way, out of my Ember mug. Still to this day, it has a giant lipstick stain on it. But the coolest thing about the Ember mug is it is like incredible to clean, which I love. And if you guys have been listening for now all 7 episodes and you haven't bought an Ember mug, then I have not done a great job at selling you on it. So let me know what I have to do. I can contact Ember and try to get a code. Really, that would be for myself because I really want to buy the travel mug. No matter the future, no matter what your predictions are, no matter what we can expect for the year, these are things that I suggest you start doing in 2024. The first thing on my list is soliciting feedback. And I mean soliciting feedback from everybody, your homeowners, your guests, and your employees. And I think this can be pretty scary, right? Like there are things, sometimes you just have those owners where you're like, I just know what they're going to say and I don't want to hear it. So I have a couple of suggestions on how you can do this and in a way that will be constructive to the business rather than potentially destructive or a time waster. So when soliciting feedback from your owners, I don't suggest doing it every single day or every single week. Obviously, if you have an owner liaison that isn't you, having a close enough relationship where the owner can be able to provide constructive feedback to that person and also incredible feedback is great. But as a whole for the company, I'm going to suggest quarterly to begin with. And what I also think is great when soliciting this feedback is to make sure that any type of feedback you get is actionable. We love an NPS score, but a lot of times it leaves just a little bit to the imagination. And when soliciting feedback that you want to use to improve your business, let's leave the least amount up to the imagination as possible. Welcome back to Shooting the Breeze. Let me talk to you about who knows how to shoot the breeze, me and Corinne. So you're lucky that you're about to go on this ride with us over the next couple of minutes. So Corinne. One thing that I think has been really difficult in our industry across hospitality in general, but really in the short term rental space since 2020 has been staffing. We're doing everything we can with the labor shortages that we're facing. Plus, we're having major issues just retaining the employees we do have because we're in such a laborious and stressful job every single day. It's 24/7 all year. Holidays are the busiest, overnights. What can Breezeway do to help alleviate some of that pressure off of our team?
Well, Megan, I'm so glad you asked. We actually launched one of our newest products last spring. It is called Assist. And Assist actually provides additional support through a team of hospitality specialists that our clients can engage with. And so those hospitality specialists can work as representatives of your team, and so they follow your processes, your the way that you communicate with your guests, and they either engage with those guests at all times of the day, so 24/7, or they can just engage with them after hours. It really depends on the needs of the business. And essentially what they're doing is they'll go through the, like I said, the processes that you provide to us that you want us to handle. And when they're not able to answer a question, most of the time they are able to engage and answer any of the needs of the guests. But if they're not able to answer something, they will either escalate it if it's time sensitive or an urgent issue to your after hours team, or they'll just go ahead and create a task so that when your team comes in the morning, they know exactly what needs to be handled that wasn't able to be done overnight. But what's really nice about that is that 92% of the time they are able to handle those issues without any sort of escalation. So very, very small fraction of those after hours calls that do come in still make it to your team. And so the ability to take a night off, take a weekend off, take the holiday off, can actually, you guys can enjoy that time knowing that your guests are still being serviced to the level of standards that would be happening if it was a member of your own internal team.
So, are you saying that this means that our teams are now going to sleep actually through the
That's
night?
exactly what I'm saying.
This is incredible news. This is a game changer. Okay. I can't even wait to what we're going to talk about next week. What kind of tips that you have for us? Thank you so much for being here. And if you listeners are interested in Breezeway, make sure you go to breezeway.io/espressos to learn more and for $100 off. So, one thing that I have done previously in a business with other members of the leadership team, we sent a survey to homeowners that detailed each department and asked the homeowners to give a specific rating and written feedback if they wanted to. It wasn't required for each department. So, for example, how do you feel our revenue department has performed this year? How do you feel like your property is being marketed this year compared to your expectations? How has maintenance and housekeeping been for you this year? And we allowed owners to rate each department and then give written feedback. And when we received their feedback, we were able to go in and say, like, oh, okay, this owner clearly cares a lot about revenue and doesn't really care about the maintenance of their property. They're more like heads in beds. It is purely an investment property versus this owner doesn't seem to care any about revenue or marketing for that matter. Like if they get a reservation, that's great. They are strictly focused on how we're going to take care of their property. And it allowed us to tailor our future communication with those owners and make note for ourselves, both mentally and in our CRM. We were using Salesforce at the time to understand each owner's preferences and where we could improve to better create an experience for those homeowners. And it was a great exercise. I mean, it was difficult, right? Like owners that rated us 1 star down the board, they were few and far between, but it allowed us to immediately pick up the phone and intervene in those conversations or with that homeowner prior to them leaving our program. Some markets, you have more churn and owner turnover than other markets. So I think keeping an understanding on what your churn usually looks like if you pretty much don't lose homeowners, I can see this maybe resistance to want to send out a survey. No matter what, it's going to allow you to understand where you need to improve in your business. And furthermore, if you have a business where you do see a high level of churn, where your market's really saturated, there are so many vacation rental companies, you're mostly dealing with investment owners versus owners who would eventually like to move into their property or pass it down to a family member, you typically see a higher rate of churn. So it might be even more important for you to have this feedback and use it toward your future change and strategy as a business. When it comes to guest feedback, I can see and support an NPS score for guests versus like a very in-depth survey like we just talked about for homeowners. But I do suggest no matter what, and most people are doing this anyway, soliciting that feedback after every single guest stay if you aren't already. On the employee side, sending out a survey to employees, I mean, this really depends on your relationship with your employees. Like if it would seem like odd to send out a survey. I can understand that, right? Like if you have 3 team members versus if you have a company that's a little bit larger, it's probably normal to send out an all users email, for example. But soliciting feedback from employees will let you know what they're loving versus what they're not enjoying. And you can tailor your conversations with them, right? Like, do you like that we have a monthly team meeting? Would you like to meet more often? What items would you like to hear about from the leadership team? Is it strategy? Is it how we are going to improve our benefits program in the next year, right? Like, I mean, clearly this is going to depend on your budget and what you feel open to sharing with your team. But I think understanding, right? Like, I talked a little bit about this maybe in the first episode. Jeremy Sprinkle, who was one of the owners of 360 Blue, the previous company that I worked for, used to always, and I know that this is common, but I always relate it to Jeremy, where he talked about making raving fans out of employees. And if your employees are raving fans of you and your business, they will stay and they will ride for you. And these employees will be happier and more productive and more successful at work because they love what they do, because they believe the company supports and appreciates them. And I think as employers, it can feel daunting and not worth our time to solicit feedback from employees, especially like when you're just moving a million miles a minute. But understanding like these employees are going to talk no matter what to each other and they're going to provide their feedback with each other. So you might as well be privy to that information and decide what you want to do with it. Right. Like one piece of feedback that I've received was your we make a lot of money on the top line, but we're not spending that money to invest in vehicles, for example. Okay, well, using that feedback, I was able to say, like, absolutely, we make a lot of money in gross rental income. And then we give a massive percent of it to homeowners. And then we give a massive percent of it to employees and payroll, plus all of our other operational costs, right? And it let employees know, like, while we might get $1, we end up with 8 cents at the very end of it, which is pretty typical for a vacation rental company, or 6 cents or 10 cents. And it's given that context has allowed employees to say like, "Oh, wow, I understand that there's a bigger picture here that I wasn't aware of that I am now, and I can use this information to go about my daily life and can appreciate the direction that the company is going in and can understand why we're waiting until we see X, Y, and Z before we purchase new vehicles." Okay, so soliciting feedback. That's number 1. We only have about 15 more and 13 minutes to do it. I have been really fortunate to be a part of businesses that are very flexible, that have structure, but there's a lot of fluidity to it, right? And that's fortunate for me. I think there are a lot of people that really value structure and appreciate that in a business and tend to move toward more the corporate structure versus like a startup environment that kind of leaves things. I personally appreciate companies that are a little bit more fluid and allow for less red tape, less bureaucracy, and decisions to be made quickly and be implemented quickly, right? Like I'm just like a fast-paced type of gal. There are a lot of benefits to that, but I still think that structure is important. So my next start for this year is have structure but be flexible. An organizational chart is actually very important. I know that in the very beginning, it's very much like everybody can do everything. Employees, myself included, want to understand like where they fit in the company, what their role is, what their title is. Gosh, this is like a hot take that I have. So many owners that I've spoken to have said, I don't really care what an employee's title is, like whatever. They can their title can be X, Y, or Z, like as long as it's not owner. Employees care what their title is, right? Like it matters to employees because they don't own the company. Of course you don't care what the title is. You're the founder or you're the CEO. Employees who are in the reservations department and want to move up and want to put bullet points on their resume, like titles are very, very important. With that, structure is important. Important, like understanding who you report to, who reports to you, where you fall on the organizational chart, what your opportunity at a business is. Even if you can't completely clearly outline that to an employee, like allow them to understand what their potential looks like here at your business and where they're falling within that organizational chart. And I can assure you, you will have a lot less issues with your team members the more confusion there is and the more that there leads to like speculation, right? Versus like, hey, here's our organizational chart. This is where everybody falls. This is where we see the company going this year. Answers all the questions. That being said, I think it is so important to be flexible. What I love about this industry is that you don't need an MBA or honestly a college degree in a lot of cases to come in and work your way up into a company, right? Like you don't have to have 14 degrees and 15 years of experience to be able to enter into the short-term rental or vacation rental industry and have a successful career. And that has been like so amazing for me to see. Like, I care way less about a college degree than I care about somebody who is smart and hardworking and cares. Like, if they have a college degree and they're an asshole, okay, like that means nothing to me. And I think that we have this really welcoming industry that allows for a lot of that flexibility. And in your business, like, I suggest that you keep that going. If your organizational chart isn't working, change it. If this decision that you made isn't working, change it. Like, have the ability to pivot and be flexible, but have the underlying structure there, and less red tape is better. I know that the larger you are and the more HR issues become a thing and you're worrying about investors if you have those, like there's more and more red tape. I think that red tape can lead to a lack of creativity with your team. So make sure that within that structural environment, especially if you're at a company with a really large budget and somebody that's kind of looking over your shoulder, like I said, whether it's an investor or you have a lawyer on the team on the HR side, allow a certain amount of autonomy that you're able to within that team, because I think the more red tape, the more frustrating and the slower decision making becomes, and the more that it can be frustrating to the team and also like prohibits you from moving in a quick way and accomplishing your goals. Integrating data into every department and not just revenue. So we talked a little bit about this. I think it was in the first or the second episode. They're all like mixing together at this point. What I mean by this is assign KPIs. I recommend 3 to 5 per department and put that department head, if your company's large enough, in charge of those KPIs. If it's just you and your business partner, split those KPIs right down the middle. Understand the percentage of your homes that are clean by a certain time period. Understand how many complaints you typically get and organize those complaints on cleaning versus a maintenance issue versus something that's out of your control and would fall on the homeowner. Keep an eye on these KPIs and use this to make actionable decisions. I believe in a mixture of making decisions in your business backed by data, but also like we're humans and emotions are important in decision making to some degree. But if you are tracking this data in a way that is digestible and actionable, then that plus your gut feeling will guide you in the right direction and you will understand where the holes are in your business. Delegate, but not too much. So what I mean by this is I think there is like such a fine balance here. Do not keep everything so close to your vest that the employees literally cannot make a single decision without your approval. We talked a little bit about that in the structural conversation. But don't delegate everything such that your employees feel like they're drowning and you're not passing them a life vest. There is a happy medium here. I think that employees feeling autonomous and empowered is so important to morale. But I also think that if employees see the CEO or the founder, owner, whatever, sitting on the beach during 4th of July when everybody else is dying and you work for a small company and you don't have enough support, like, that's also gonna be pretty corrosive to morale. So, find a balance that allows for empowerment, but also allows for the team to know that no matter what, you have their back. I think coming in from a startup, it's important for the founder or the CEO to understand every single aspect of the company, know what everybody does, what their day to day looks like, and empathize with each individual role, like, particularly those that are kind of shitty, right? Like, it's shitty sometimes to be in guest services when you get yelled at for days and days and days, especially if you're going to into a busy season, right? Where you have a lot of guests in town, some are complaining, right? Like, that's a pretty daunting job. Why don't you sit down and answer the phones for a little while? One day. This doesn't mean that you come in and you are responsible for changing every little thing and nobody feels empowered in the department, but it allows you to empathize with each person in your company and the role that they have. I have an important interruption, and it is to discuss AirDNA. So, AirDNA's for sale properties feature. Let's talk about it for a second. AirDNA now has a properties for sale functionality where you can find available properties for sale and see their earning potential directly within AirDNA. You don't have to leave, you don't have to go to Zillow, you don't have to go to Excel, you don't have to combine 15 sheets. It is all right there for you in your AirDNA dashboard. Essentially, view this new functionality like Zillow for short term rentals. If you are ready to sign up for AirDNA and take advantage of these incredible features, go to airdna.co/workflows and espressos and use the code workflows for your first month free. See you there. Hire people that are different than you. Man, okay. So this is funny because in like romantic relationships or even friendships, you hear this, right? Like, you're attracted to people that are really different than you, and then once you've been together for a long time, you start to resent the differences because you just wanna turn the person into you, and I think that is so true in business relationships too. But if you can remove any frustration out of this or, like, preconceived ideas, having somebody, whether it's your business partner or your team in general, hire people that have different skills than you do. You already have your skill set, right? There are things that you are going to take care of that you're incredible at, that no matter what, you're going to excel at. Whether you have like this insane attention to detail, you are very meticulous, you're a slow mover, but like you're kind of shy. You don't want to be in front of the owners. You're not a salesperson. Like, you're the data person, right? You're going to stay on finances and revenue and anything behind the scenes. Hire a person that is gregarious and maybe doesn't have a super close attention to detail, but it doesn't matter because they can literally sell ice to an Eskimo. Attract your opposite in business, and you will ensure that you have a full range of skills to accomplish your goals. Invest in your brand and your marketing. This really speaks for itself. It is worth spending the money on having an incredible brand. And that isn't just your logo, right? That's everything that falls under a brand umbrella and your marketing in general. It is worth it. It will pay off in the long run. Along those same lines, have a budget. If you don't, put on the top of your list this year, I'm going to create a budget. And the last, what number is it? Number 8, invest in your people. Create raving fans of your employees, listen to them, support them, build a career path for them if you have one, and be honest with feedback with your team. Clear is kind. My old boss used to say that all the time. And as someone who has struggled with confrontation for many years of her life, that's me. It has been hard for me to be super clear with employees in the past. And I think I've realized over the past probably 3 years in particular, that being clear and concise with feedback and delivering constructive feedback in a kind manner that's honest has paid off for the employee more than anything. Okay, we made it through our starts, and we've only been in this episode for 30 minutes. Let's hit the stops. I have a couple of these that might line up with starts, but there are less stops. Okay. The first stop, Arguably the most important thing to stop this year. Stop keeping owners on your program that are assholes. Just don't do it. It is not worth it. I do not care how much money the property brings in. If the owner is an asshole, particularly to your team members, berates them, treats them like a servant and the help, like, fire them. Don't be afraid. It is not worth it to keep an owner that does not align with your values. We're all going to have the owners that are very particular and are annoying, right? And like, but they're nice, okay? Or they're not horrible. Of course, we have to keep owners that we're not always going to agree with. We're running a business here. We're not going to like everybody. But if an owner is disrespectful or yells or cusses at an employee or is just an asshole, fire them. Period. I don't want to hear any exceptions to that rule. I don't think there are any. Have owners that reflect the type of company that you want to have and the values that are important to you. Okay. That same vein, it applies to guests, but employees that are cancerous to your team morale, but that owners like, are not worth keeping. And this might be a hot take, but if you have team members time and time and time again that come to you and say, "Hey, Jerry is a problem." Like, working with Jerry is a nightmare. He is annoying to work with. He's rude to the team. He's not a team player. Whatever it is with Jerry. But the homeowners love Jerry and there's a couple of him. I don't care. Do not keep Jerry on your team because what's going to happen is Jerry's clearly cancerous to your team morale. You could likely end up losing 5 employees because of Jerry. Is that worth it? Or even 3 employees or 2 for that matter. Jerry's one person that you could transition out of your company, hire a replacement, and explain to your owners, "Hey, Jerry wasn't a fit with the company, but we're bringing in Emily, and Emily's incredible, and we're super excited, and we're going to make sure that you see no lapse in your service throughout that transition process." My old boss used to say this too, and I'm sure that this is like a saying in general, but she used to say, "Be slow to hire and quick to fire." And I think that's true, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that you go in and you fire someone that messes up one time. I am suggesting that if everybody is telling you that Jerry's an asshole, he probably is. Mic drop. Do not grow your company without a strategy. That seems pretty like obvious, right? Am I suggesting that you need to know exactly what the next 5 years are going to look like? Absolutely not. Or that your strategy has to stay the same no matter what. No, of course, right? Like you've heard it from me a million times. I believe in pivoting and I think that's so important to your business. But I think growing your company without an understanding of why or what direction you're going in doesn't serve you well. If your strategy is to only take on homeowners that make X amount of revenue so you can ensure you have a positive bottom line and only in this certain area, that's the direction that you need to go in. If you don't care how much money the owner needs to make, your goal is to grow mass and create a huge brand and a lot of homes and just have a big company and be a gorilla in this specific area, that's the direction that you need to go in. It doesn't matter, like, whatever your prerogative is, grow with a strategy in mind. I think I said this too, like, begin with the end in mind. And whether, like, the end is that you eventually wanna sell your company one day, like, just keep that in the back of your mind when you make decisions, or whether you want to keep your company around for the next 60 years, grow with that in mind. Stop micromanaging every aspect of your business and focus on what you're really great at. We talked about this in the starts. If you come in every single day and you micromanage every single aspect of your business, like not only does your team probably talk a lot of crap about you behind your back, but you're not serving the company in a healthy way. Focus on the things you're really good at, hire people that are good at the things that you are not good at, and empower them. Worth repeating, you know? Stop avoiding change. I know that for really like structured, careful, deliberate individuals, it can be scary to be in an industry that changes so rapidly. Change is inevitable. And the more that you can embrace it and move in the direction that the industry is moving, and this doesn't mean like pick up every fad that comes across your desk and sign every software contract for every email you get. This just means like move where the times are going. And again, don't be afraid to pivot. Sorry that I say that so much, but like also not sorry. And don't be afraid of change. Change is important. Change is what makes a business great. Change is what shows people that you're not afraid of the future. And the companies that are embracing change and that are transforming all the time are the companies that make it out to be most successful. Okay, last stop for this year. And I'm speaking to you, visionaries. Stop having so many objectives and goals. Listen, my personal goal list in my journal this year is like 40 goals long. I said this to Robin Cragen the other day. My goals list is long for me individually, but for the company, it is short and it is strategic and it is something that needs to be communicated early and often. I think if you sit in front of your employees and you say, like, all right, here are the 15 objectives we have this year, everyone's going to fall asleep after objective number 7. No one's going to remember them, and you're going to be moving in 15 different directions. Row your boat in 1 to 3 directions, right? Like have 1 to 3 goals. I know it seems confusing to row your boat in 3 directions, but you're following, okay? Have 1 to 3 goals. They need to be concise, and you can have as many individual objectives that fall under these goals as you want to. Just make sure that you have a concise amount of goals and that you are communicating them to your team, that they know what they are working toward every single day and every single month and year, and communicate the progress on those goals often and just go get after it. So, how'd you like it? Start and stops of 2024. I went rogue on this episode. Thank you, Will, for being open to this idea that I sent him approximately 10 minutes before we started recording. I am really curious about everyone's feedback and what you think and what your starts and stops are for 2024. I honestly, like, I cannot believe that we've recorded 7 episodes and that you have listened along the way. I'm so grateful for the platform and to Hospitality FM for taking a chance on a show that is mostly me rambling into a microphone for 30 minutes, but hopefully, like, kind of funny, and you can at least have, like, one thing that you take away. Anyway, I hope you all have an incredible Tuesday. And if you are listening to this on any other day of the week, episodes come out of Tuesdays. So what are you doing? Why'd you wait this long to listen to it? Okay. Thank you for sticking along sticking along. Is that a thing? Thank you for sticking through. Just thanks for being here for season 1, team. Maybe we'll be back. Maybe we won't. No matter what, we had a great time. I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon. Bye.